Welcome to the third and final episode of our series Defined Benefits in Focus. In episode 1, we look to explore the structure of defined benefit schemes and the options that they provide to you in terms of their benefits in the future. In episode 2, we look to explore some of the questions we hear when someone is considering a transfer of a defined benefit pension. For our final episode, we are going to cover the importance of financial advice when considering a transfer of a defined benefit pension. Carol, so if someone is thinking that a transfer could work for them and they want to explore the options, what happens next?
Well, this is a good starting point. We'd always ask anybody considering transferring their final salary benefits to watch these videos, which hopefully explain to them in some detail what they have, how valuable those benefits are, and what our process is, basically how we would approach the transfer process. If after watching the videos they think, actually, yes, a transfer could be suitable for me, they need to contact their scheme administrator or the trustees, because they will need to ask for a transfer value, a cash equivalent transfer value, or sometimes known as a CETV. But that's what the scheme trustees will then prepare based on your benefits, which are very personalised, obviously. So based on your benefits, they will calculate the transfer value available. So the pot of money that if you do want to transfer can be taken out of your final salary scheme and put into a scheme which is just for you and just for your, a personal benefit for you. The thing to note there is when you're contacting your scheme administrator, you are entitled to one free transfer value in any 12-month period. If you ask for more than one in a 12-month period, there's very much likely to be a charge for that. And those charges can range from £250 up to maybe £1,200. So there can be quite a substantial charge. So really don't ask for a transfer value, I think, unless you are probably seriously considering transferring. But then you can contact your scheme administrator for a transfer value. Once you have that, and if you're still thinking about transferring, that's the time to contact us.
You've mentioned that there is a cost involved in asking for a transfer value. What are the other costs?
If you approach us to offer advice in regards to your defined benefit transfer, we would complete a report as well as undertake lots of investigation. For this, there is a fixed advice fee. Normally this is between £3,000 or £4,000 plus VAT. However, it does depend on your individual circumstances and the complexities involved. What is important here is that cost is irrespective of whether we advise you to transfer or not, and therefore is a standalone fee and needs to be settled.
That sounds expensive.
It's true, it's not a small cost, and the reason why the cost is I suppose, in the thousands of pounds rather than hundreds, is because of the amount of work involved in actually advising you. We will undertake a process of fully investigating your defined benefits, so the final salary benefits that you're entitled to. So we'll have to fully understand the benefits payable to you and your dependents and any children, the death benefits payable, any escalation or increases in retirement and beforehand, so that we have a very full picture of what it is that you're entitled to, so that we can then consider whether it's appropriate for you to give that up or not. And again, as part of that advice, we have to understand you completely. We need to know all about your personal and financial circumstances. That will include health, as well as finances, as well as dependents, and your overall picture. It will also include whether you're working at the moment. So a full income and assets picture for you as an individual. And we then need to understand what your aims and objectives are in retirement. What are you trying to achieve? And why are we looking at this transfer in the first place? All of that comes really often via phone calls initially, and then meetings. We normally have 2, sometimes 3 meetings when we're looking at the benefits. We'll produce cash flow analysis, so to try and give you an idea of, if you do transfer, how those monies might change in retirement. Part of that will take into account your investment risk, how much risk you as an individual are prepared and comfortable taking on, and that we feel that you're capable of taking on. So the process is big. As I say, the cost is a fair amount because there's a lot involved in this process, and it does culminate, as Chris says, in a report, which is our advice to you. And irrespective of whether our advice is to transfer or not to transfer, that advice report has to be paid for. If the advice is to transfer and you're comfortable doing so, there will be additional costs involved in setting up a pension scheme to receive that transfer value. So that has to be borne in mind as well.
Thank you. That certainly sounds very, very comprehensive. So to transfer, I do need a letter signed by an advisor. Why can't this be done without any advisor research if I want to transfer my pension and I don't need advice?
We take our role very seriously, and we have a duty to advise clients appropriately and in accordance with their circumstances and their needs and objectives. So we take this role very seriously, and therefore we would be very uncomfortable allowing any transfer to go through without undertaking all the numerous fact-finding information that Carol's just mentioned earlier.
What would happen if you advised me not to transfer?
Not a lot, to be fair. Not through us anyway. If our advice is not to transfer and you say, I want to transfer anyway, that isn't something that we can help you with. We won't be able to take it any further. If our advice is not to transfer, then essentially that's probably where our involvement would end.
Assuming a transfer is appropriate, will you sign it off so I can make my own investment decisions without any ongoing advice?
No, we won't do that here. Our culture is such that we want long-term relationships with our client. We want to fully understand their circumstances and their needs and objectives and how they change over the years. But what is important to us is that retirement products are for the long term, and we also want to be for the long term too. We want to provide support and advice and help the individuals through their changing circumstances as their life progresses.
Once the transfer has occurred, are my finances reviewed, say, every year or every half year?
We don't just provide a transfer or an advice report in isolation. As far as we're concerned, if you're coming to us for that advice, we want to be involved for the longer term, and I think it's really important to build up that relationship. Of course, we've done all the fact finding. We understand you as a person and where you are in your finances and your aims and objectives, and that journey and that involvement and that relationship between us we want to continue. It's hugely important to continue having regular meetings, and we do exactly that. Offer an annual review meeting where we'd sit and meet face to face. You can tell us about any changes in your personal or financial circumstances, on whether your aims and objectives in retirement have changed, and that's obviously very important. We will review your pension arrangement and see how it's progressed over the previous year, which will take into account the investment return that might have happened, or that will have happened, hopefully good, but sometimes not always good, and that's obviously entirely dependent upon the market and what your investment choice is. We will also then look at whether there's been any changes in the legislation. There might have been budgets, there might have been changes in government, all of which can have an impact in what the pension scheme can and can't do ongoing. So it is hugely important, to have those ongoing face-to-face meetings, and we would try and encourage you, to meet us on at least an annual basis to discuss both the pension scheme and yourself.
Thank you, Carol and Chris. Thank you for watching our Defined Benefits in Focus series, and we hope that they have helped to explain the structure of these benefits and the things you should consider if you are looking to transfer a defined benefit pension. If having watched the series and thinking about all the issues you need to keep in mind if you are considering a transfer of a defined pension benefit, taking into account the need for advice, the potential outcome of the advice and the costs involved, and you are interested in receiving advice, then please feel free to contact us via the channels on your screen now or by clicking on the link. Finally, thank you again to Carol and to Chris, and to you for watching. Thank you and goodbye.